In March 1876, two things happened 3 weeks apart. In Washington, a patent office registered the telephone. In Tokyo, a decree forbade the samurai to wear swords. The book that told the world what the samurai believed came 24 years later. It was published in 1900, in English, in Philadelphia. So, where was the ancient code before that? Ask what Bushido is, and you get a list. Loyalty, honor, courage, rectitude, self-control, death before dishonor. That list has a source. It is not a medieval scroll. It is a small book called Bushido, the Soul of Japan. Its author was Inazo Nitobe, a Japanese agricultural economist and a Quaker convert, married to an American, living abroad, and often ill. He wrote it in English for Western readers. By his own account, it began with a question. A Belgian jurist asked him how Japanese schools taught morality without religious instruction. Nitobe had no ready answer. The book is his answer. Japan, he argued, had a chivalry of its own. Its knights had a code, and that code had survived in the manners of modern Japan. Western readers loved it. Theodore Roosevelt read it and gave copies to friends. For a generation of foreigners, this thin volume was the samurai. What it was not was a work of history. Nitobe was no specialist in the samurai past. Go looking for his code in the age of the samurai, and it thins out in your hands. The word itself is genuinely old. Bushido, the way of the warrior, appears in a chronicle of the Takeda house finished around 1616. That is the earliest written use we have. So, the term existed, the question is what it carried. Go to the Edo period, the long peace after 1603. Warriors there write constantly about how to behave. Yamaga Soko asks what a warrior is for when there is no war left to fight. His answer is moral example. The samurai as teacher. A century later, a retainer named Yamamoto Tsunetomo dictated the book we call Hagakure. The way of the warrior, he says, is found in death. It is the most quoted line in the tradition. It was also a private manuscript, kept inside one domain, by a man complaining that the samurai of his own day had gone soft. Not a national code, a local argument, and that is the pattern. These texts disagree with one another. Loyalty in them is owed to one lord and one house, not to Japan, which was not yet something you could be loyal to. There is no single doctrine waiting to be found because nobody had written one. So, if the code is new, why does everyone call it ancient? Look at what happened to the samurai themselves. In 1871, the domains were abolished. In 1873, Japan raised a conscript army of commoners. In 1876, the swords went, and hereditary stipends were converted into bonds. In 1877, the last samurai rebellion was crushed by that conscript army. Inside a single decade, an entire class stopped existing. And in the 1880s, almost immediately after, Japanese writers began talking about Bushido, not as a memory, as a national ethic. The timing is the argument. Meiji Japan was building a modern state, and a state needs a moral core, a constitution in 1889, an imperial rescript on education in 1890, and a persistent foreign question. What is it exactly that you people believe? The historian Oleg Benesh traces the first serious discussions of Bushido to the end of the 1880s and finds them shaped by European ideals of the gentleman and of chivalry. Bushido did not walk in from the 16th century. It arrived through Victorian Europe. Then 2 wars made it common sense. After China in 1895, and above all, after Russia in 1905, Bushido spread into schools, sport, literature, and religion. The version that won at home was not Nitobe's. It belonged to the scholar Inoue Tetsujiro, who tied the warrior's loyalty to the emperor. Nitobe wrote for foreigners. Inoue wrote for the nation. That sounds like a closed case. It is not. Benesh calls his book Inventing the Way of the Samurai. The framework is invented tradition, something modern dressed as something ancient. That verdict has been contested. In 2018, the sociologist Christian Etzrod was direct. He tested Nitobe's claims against 29 texts from the Kamakura period through the Edo. His finding, the values Nitobe listed, loyalty, courage, honor, self-control, the acceptance of death, do recur across those centuries. He still calls Nitobe's method a hodgepodge, but he argues that Nitobe described real samurai ethics reasonably well. So, the honest answer is narrower than either headline. The virtues are old. The evidence for them is real. What is modern is the packaging. One name, one list, one code for one nation. Where the old ends and the invention begins is exactly what historians are still arguing about. Which brings us back to March 1876. 3 weeks apart, a patent registered the telephone, and a decree took the samurai's swords. The word Bushido is older than both of them, but the book that made it the soul of a nation is younger than the telephone. What was invented in 1900 was not the virtues, it was the decision to call them Japan's soul. Sources are in the description. More from Nihon Chronicles.